What is going on, guys? This is Wade here with Tongues Cat Sports, and today we're going to be going over the off-season moves of the Houston Texans. So since the end of the 2024 NFL season, it was always kind of speculated that the Texans would be pretty active in the off-season market. It kind of took off a little bit slow after the first day, as they didn't really have too many moves made. They lost out on, Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, Mike Evans. He ended up getting re-signing with the Buccaneers. So there were a little bit of acquisitions that we wanted, or I wanted, at least as a Texan fan, that we didn't get. But it appears that they may have made up quite a bit of ground with some of those moves. But before we really dive into that, I just want to go over just a little bit my opinion and just how much CJ Stroud and the Texans have really turned things around since the last time I even made a video about the Texans. Last time I talked about the Texans, it was 2020. And, I was riding high, feeling good. We had Deshaun Watson. I was really pumped that they would make a run at it for a few years. Deshaun Watson looked like he was going to be the quarterback of the Texans' future for some time. We still had DeAndre Hopkins. So, we were looking really pretty. And then, of course, Bill O'Brien just decided to absolutely destroy all of that momentum. Deshaun decided to destroy that momentum as well with some of the things he did. And yeah, like I said in the video a couple of days ago, it was looking pretty bleak for Texan fans. But, here we are now. So yeah, CJ Stroud, going into the draft last year with that second pick overall, I really didn't know. Like, part of me was like, yeah, we're going to get Stroud. He's going to do okay. We'll see how he goes, and we'll move from there. We'll grow from there. Maybe we'll get a high pick next year, this year, and get maybe Marvin Harrison Jr. or one of these elite wide receivers. I really didn't expect at all the season they had. I definitely didn't think they would win the division, let alone make it to the playoffs, let alone win a playoff game. I really thought they'd win, maybe 5 or 6 games. I know that's what a lot of people had them projected for, but realistically, that's what they really were looking at doing. Nico Collins was not the wide receiver he was last year, the 2 previous years prior. Dameon Pierce, he fell off immensely. The defense struggled mightily the years prior. The offensive line wasn't giving Davis Mills any sort of sense of protection, and even when he did have time, it still just wasn't connecting. So yeah, 6 games. If we won 6 games, that looked like success. But to be able to win 9 games, I think they won 9 games and make it the playoffs. And to win a playoff game, unfortunately, the game against the Ravens didn't go how I wanted. I definitely wanted it to be a little bit more closer. I thought they would have lost, but I definitely wanted it to be closer. But yeah, CJ Stroud, and then also credit to the Texans for trading that 3rd pick overall and getting Will Anderson. Gosh, the NFL and the opinions of just how lucky the Cardinals got by doing that move, and how what they thought looked like an absolutely steal of a move by the Arizona Cardinals really didn't work out like they all thought, as the Texans pick from the Browns ended up being a better selection than what the Cardinals had from the Texans. So yeah, let me rephrase that again, right? So the Texans pick from the Browns was better. I think it was 23rd overall, and then the pick that the Cardinals got ended up being like 27 or 28. So yeah, it actually worked in our favor. regardless of how you look at it. But yeah, so credit C.J. Stroud and D'Amico Ryans and Will Anderson for really changing the culture and changing that of the Texans. But now let's go over, before we really touch on who they signed for and traded for, let's go over some moves that they lost. So they lost linebacker Blake Cashman and defensive end Jonathan Grenard. Both of those guys, they had career years last year for the Texans, which again, really helped them achieve. Again, though, the Texans, to even get players on their squad for the past few seasons, they had to take 1-year flyers, 2-year flyers on these guys. So a lot of these guys that they lost over the offseason, they were kind of just 1-year guys, 2-year guys. Grenard, I mean, the Texans drafted him, but he really didn't, have a great year until last year. So it's kind of like, are you sure? Are you comfortable that this is actually the guy you're paying for, or was it just because it was the scheme the Texans had, or was it just, one of those 1-year wonder years? Not really sure, but the Vikings signed both Blake Cashman and Jonathan Grenard in the offseason. They got big money. Way to go, guys. Generational wealth now for their families and thereafter. So credit them. Hopefully they do great. It's never fun, especially whenever you get a big contract like that and you never live up to it. So hopefully, they do fine, just as long as we don't see the Vikings in the Super Bowl. I'll be okay with that. They also lost running back Devin Singletary. He signed a 3-year deal with the New York Giants. And Singletary, again, he gave the Texans running game a little bit of juice, and was able, as Dameon Pierce, he still just, ever since his rookie year, he just has not lived up to it. So he was able to give the Texans some running game, and he got a pretty big deal for a running back. I think it was 3 years for 16 or 18 million. So credit Devin Singletary for securing the bag and being able to get a decent amount of money on that side. They also traded away Malik Collins to the 49ers for a 7th round draft pick. Collins, he was really good. He was really productive. He had a bit of a salary cap on him, so they were able to clear that up. But a 7th round pick, he probably he brought back more value than the 7th rounder. So the 49ers for sure won that trade. Yeah, those were some of the key losses that the Texans had over the offseason. But again, they made some great additions. Starting off with Dalton Schultz, they were able to retain their tight end for a 3-year, $36 million contract. So again, with the young quarterback and Stroud, it's always good to continue having the same offensive personnel unless you really are able to get a big upgrade. And Dalton Schultz was pretty much the cream of the crop coming out of this year's tight end landscape. There wasn't a lot in there. The draft, Brock Bowers, we'll probably touch on him in a later video, but he's going to be the number 1 tight end selected. He'll probably go top 7, top 8, top 10 at the minimum. But yeah, the Texans weren't going to get him. So to be able to re-sign Dalton Schultz, maybe a little bit more money than you really wanted to, but for $12 million a year to lock down the tight end, he was a really good, reliable pass catcher. It's not gonna hurt Stroud, to say the least. They were also able to sign Daniel Hunter, big time defensive end from the Minnesota Vikings, to a 2-year, $49 million deal. He should really cement the defensive line with Will Anderson on the other side, as this guy, he showed that, he's been in the league for a while, so they got a proven veteran here, whereas Grenard, it was his first year. So do you really feel comfortable paying Grenard that much, or would you rather save it and get someone else? And they were able to get Daniel Hunter, so that should be a really big win for the Texans, as he should for sure get double-digit sacks and a ton of tackles. They also made a running back splash by trading for Joe Mixon. They sent a 7th round draft pick for Joe Mixon, then signed him to a 3-year, $30 million deal. So this is one of the best running backs the Texans have had probably since Arian Foster, I'd say. So it's been a while, but he's had a ton of success. Now the Bengals, they've used the heck out of him, but he's been reliable in the ground game and in the pass catching game. I expect big things from Joe Mixon. He should have over, 1,000 yards easily running. That's what you want to see from your running backs now, especially with there being 17, 18 games. It'd be nice for him to get closer to about 1,200, 1,300 yards. He should have double-digit touchdowns. This is the guy that on the Bengals, he was awesome. He was their star before Jamar Chase was there even. So he was the lifeblood of the Cincinnati Bengals. Does he have enough juice? That, again, is the struggle. I really did want Saquon Barkley. The Eagles, unfortunately, were able to snag him. I thought Barkley would have been better. But a 7th-round draft pick sent over. They re-signed him to a 3-year deal. I think Joe Mixon will bring back enough value to where at least this year, maybe next year, it doesn't look as bad. Someone else they re-signed, Noah Brown, wide receiver, 1 year, $5 million deal. So Brown and CJ Stroud, they had some big games whenever Tank Dell was down or if Nico Collins was down. Noah Brown was the next guy to step up. So again, just keeping that same depth, that's always promising. Let's see, they got a couple more other guys, Danico Autry and Azeez Al-Shaair. Both of those guys coming from the Tennessee Titans, with Danico Autry being a defensive lineman. They signed him for a 2-year, $20 million deal. And then Azeez, the linebacker, they signed him for a 3-year, $34 million deal. So again, they are really beefing up their defense, as that's what really cost them this year. Their offense, they had stretches where they weren't looking that good, but the defense definitely needed more help on that side of the ball. So Danico Autry and Azeez, they should really, again, anchor that defense. These are more veterans that have been in the game, been in the business for a while. So I expect really solid things out of them. And then let's see who else we got. We got Jeff Okudah and CJ Henderson. Jeff Okudah and CJ Henderson both being first overall selections, first-round draft picks a few years ago. These are cornerbacks, so they'll help with holding down the wide receivers, hopefully. It took 1-year deal for both of these guys. So great. If they succeed, awesome. It was a great little deal for us. If not, it's only 1 year, $4 or $5 million for these guys. So they're not really going to hurt us too much. Also, they re-signed Tommy Townsend, or not re-signed, they signed Tommy Townsend. He's a punter. He was on the Kansas City Chiefs. So now we have a Super Bowl winner in the Houston Texans building. So hopefully that will give them guys some motivation to, this is what you want to win. This is how you got to win it. This is what you get, showing that ring off. And finally, we're getting to these two last, big offseason moves, which I'm really glad that I kind of waited to talk about the Texans, because they made a huge acquisition. But before we get to that, they did trade their first-round pick to the Vikings. So they traded their first rounder, which was pick 23, and they traded a 6th rounder, which was 237, to the Minnesota Vikings for a 2024 second rounder, a 4th-round pick, and then a 2025 second-round pick. So the Texans, they don't have a first-round draft pick this year. They moved back to get a second-rounder and an extra second-rounder, essentially, from the Vikings. And with that 2025 second-round draft pick, the Texans were able to trade for wide receiver of the Buffalo Bills, Stephon Diggs. There was a ton of speculation about the wide receivers this offseason, with Mike Evans, what's he going to do? T. Higgins, what is he going to do? Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, they both got cut and signed and shipped off elsewhere. And the Texans, they kept losing out to these guys. So they finally were able to get Stephon Diggs, big-time playmaker for the Buffalo Bills, as they had pretty much run their course dry with each other. So unfortunately, though, Buffalo, for Stephon Diggs with the Bills, he, towards the end of the year, he was getting like 5 catches for 50 yards. He was not this Stephon Diggs at the beginning of the year, let alone years prior that we had seen. Diggs, he's a guy who should get 100 yards, 1,300, or 100 yards. He should get 100 catches, 12 or 1,300 yards for 10 touchdowns. This is a number one wide receiver type selection that the Texans were able to get for a second-round pick for next year. So it's not even this year. Something else that they did, which is a little bit odd, so we'll see how it favors, is that Diggs, he had a 4-year deal with the Bills that he signed to a year ago. Well, the Texans, they got rid of those final 3 years. They voided them. So Diggs is on a 1-year contract for $22 million. So it's basically a 1-year prove-it deal for both the Texans and Stephon Diggs. Like, here you go. Here's 1 year. Show yourself. And we'll figure out what happens the next year. Kind of a strange deal for the Texans. Pretty good deal for Stephon Diggs. As he will be able to go back out next year and command, if he successes, command a huge contract again. If he flounders and doesn't do as well, then he kind of lost out, and the Texans probably gained out. But we'll see. I'm a little disappointed that, it's not like we have him for another 2 or 3 years, especially when you send a second-round pick. I get it was a next year second, so it might not even be a high second. It could be, middle, low second. But still, a second-round pick, you really expect those guys, for 4 years, plus you re-sign them for another 3 or 4 or 5 years. Those second-round picks are very valuable. So for Stephon Diggs, I really hope he can become that playmaker that he was early in his career with Minnesota and early in career with Buffalo. But we'll see what's going to happen. So that brings us to the remaining draft picks that the Texans have for this year. So they have 9 total draft picks right now for 2024. They have no first or no fifth rounder, obviously. Doesn't mean things can change, but for now, no first round pick, no fifth round pick. But they do have 2 second rounders at 42 and 59. They have a third round selection at 86. They have 2 fourth rounders, 123 and 126. They have 2 sixths at 188 and 189, and 2 sevenths at 238 and 247. So again, they still have 9 draft picks. So that's a ton of other acquisitions and other moves that the Texans can still make as of recording this video, which is April 7th. So the draft is in about 3 weeks. I believe it's April 25th or 26th, whatever that Thursday is when the draft is. I'll have a video that comes out before then going over my selections for the draft. Yeah, so the Texans, they still have 9 potential moves that they can make. Again, like I said, they did move out of the first round, but they do have 2 seconds. So if there's still a guy in the first round that they want, there's nothing stopping them from moving back into the first round. But that's where we are right now. Ultimately, the question, that we're asking ourselves is, did the Houston Texans do enough to bolster themselves and really give them a shot to win a Super Bowl with CJ Stroud on his rookie contract? If the answer is yes, you think they did enough, then go wherever you are and place a bet on the Houston Texans to win the Super Bowl. That's what I did. I did this past weekend. I went to Louisiana, placed a $50 bet on the Texans to win the Super Bowl, and got them at plus 1,600. So that returns $850. So they are 3rd overall in Super Bowl odds. Also, if you think they're going to win the Super Bowl, then place an odd on them to win the conference and win the division. As I did both of those as well while I was over there this past weekend. So I definitely think the Texans did enough to really cement themselves in the Super Bowl and a chase for one. Will they take down Patrick Mahomes? That's yet to be seen. But they do have, as of now, without drafting any extra picks, they have a roster that can compete. I definitely think so. I think Stroud, I think they did enough to protect him, where even if he does have a down year, that the defense is still good enough to ride a really strong defense. Because that's also another question is if Stroud stumbles this year, I'm anticipating him to have way more than, 3 or 4 interceptions this year. Maybe not, but I mean, he should throw more interceptions, but should have more passing touchdowns, have more passing yards, of course. But assuming he does kind of stumble a bit, make a couple more turnovers, is that defense strong enough to hold the other offense to, a 3 and out? Are they able to force a turnover right back? And I think they did. Again, if you think the answer is yes, go find the best odds for the Texans, place a little bit of money on there, and see what happens. Because this is probably the best odds you're going to get for them. As I only anticipate their odds improving, which would be worse for the consumer, right? And this is probably the highest I've been on the Texans. This is probably the best Texans team we've had for a while. 2011, Matt Schaub, Arian Foster, young J.J. Watt, young DeAndre Hopkins. That was an awesome team with Deshaun Watson. That team looked really good. But now with D'Amico Ryans and C.J. Stroud, this team really looks like they can be somebody. So we'll see. I'm rooting all for them, of course, and maybe we can win some money off them having a successful season. That's where we're at right now. So again, I will have a NFL draft video coming out here in the next few weeks. I'm going to go over picks 1 through 32. We'll see how good I do. If I can make a couple of correct selections. But that's all I got for you now. So I will see you next time. This has been Wade with Turning Scat Sports. Thank you very much, and goodbye.